Hi everyone. Good afternoon and welcome to your Young Professionals Division webinar entitled Using Leading Indicators and Technology to Lead Employees to Safety, sponsored by Young Professionals Division sponsors Columbia Pipeline Group and NiSource. This is Christy Mays, Division Manager for the Young Professionals Division. I'm sure most of you know me. I know a lot of you have gotten a lot of emails from me over the last couple of days. So this webinar will last approximately 45 minutes and there will be a 15-minute question and answer session following the conclusion of the webinar, so the total event time will be 1 hour. Please submit your questions via the chat function of the webinar platform to the host, which you will see on your screen as Corporate and Community Partnerships. Today's 4 presenters include Don Eckstein, the Senior Vice President of Environmental Safety and Technical Training at NiSource, Ben Watson, a Health, Safety, and Environmental Team Leader at NiSource, Frank Perry, the Director of Health and Safety Services for Columbia Pipeline Group, and Morgan Busey, an Associate Engineer in Columbia Pipeline Group's Integrity Risk Management Department. Everyone, let's begin.
Yeah, hello, my name is Don Eckstein. I'm Senior Vice President of Environmental Safety and Technical Training at NiSource, and I thank you for joining, and it's an honor to be here with you.
I'm Ben Watson, HSE Team Leader. Appreciate everybody jumping in as well. NiSource has a 7-state footprint. Indiana is our combo utility, which provides both gas and electric to customers. Ohio, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, and Massachusetts are our gas distribution companies. We have approximately 7,500 employees across 7 states, with our corporate headquarters located out of Maryville, Indiana. We have about 3.5 million natural gas utility customers and 500,000 electric utility customers, and currently are investing over $30 billion over the next 20 years to enhance our infrastructure across our footprint.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Frank Perry, and I'm the Director of Health and Safety for the Columbia Pipeline Group. I oversee the overall direction, policy, and implementation of healthy and safety initiatives and the actions across the entire footprint. And I've worked in the gas industry for approximately 35 years, and we're happy to be a part of this.
My name is Morgan Busey. As Christy stated, I am an Associate Engineer in the Pipeline Risk Management Group, where my duties have focused on the implementation of the Intelligent Pipeline Solution, with my main focus on that project being data integration, analytics, and process improvement.
At Columbia Pipeline Group, we operate and have facilities in 16 states, ranging from Louisiana to New York. We have approximately 15,000 miles of pipeline, 112 compressor stations of various sizes and horsepower. And we have a fleet of approximately 1,500 vehicles, which include everything from sedans to 5-axle tractor trailers. We have a wide variety of off-road and construction equipment, as well as rented specialty equipment at times. Typically, our organization drives about 1.2 million miles a month. Our workforce skills and abilities require everything from our tech-savvy, forward-thinking engineers, from which you'll hear from Morgan in a little bit, to that fundamental blocking and tackling of day-to-day operations and maintenance work. And it's not always glamorous, but we provide a fundamental need for our customers and clients. And our total head count's, give or take, around 2,000 right now. And like our employees, we have a diversified and high-quality customer base. And our employees, they can be working with anyone from local distribution companies to power plants with gas-fired electric generators, to producers in the midstream markets and companies where our employees are exposed to drilling rigs and pump trucks, to our own operations and maintenance activities. You know, from a safety perspective and preparation, this presents some very challenging opportunities in keeping our safety message fresh, understandable, and believable to everyone in the organization. It's certainly not a one-size-fits-all, send a safety email or newsletter and hope everyone reads it.
We wanted to provide a very high-level overview of how NiSource and CPG operate for those of you who don't know. So natural gas is extracted from the ground and is transported to processing plants to remove impurities and separate the natural gas that we use in our homes today. From there, the gas moves through large transmission lines across the country. We use compressor stations to push the gas from one area to another, and that would be CPG, as Frank just mentioned. The gas is finally sent to city gates stations, where the gas pressure and size of the pipes reduced and are moved through distribution lines to various customers. And that's really what NiSource does.
Thank you, Ben. This slide actually outlines the next 5 slides. I'll cover vehicle telematics and behavior-based safety, and Ben's going to cover leading indicators and enhanced training. First, on vehicle telematics, what is it? Basically, telematics is a technology system in your vehicle that monitors and coaches your driving. It really looks at 5 different things: how you brake, how you corner, how you accelerate, if you're speeding or not, and how you do lane handling. At NiSource, driving is a big deal. We drive over 73.8 million miles a year, and that's the equivalent of over 200,000 miles a day. From a driving perspective, we need to improve on our driving behaviors and our driving results. So from a final state position on telematics is that we believe that employees should not need technology to drive safely. We admit that we're not where we want to be culturally on safety, in particular with our driving and our vehicle collisions. But we realized that technology was available that could help us drive the behaviors we want from our employees when they're behind the wheel. Hopefully, in 3 to 5 years, we've learned all the right behaviors so we no longer need telematics. But in the interim, our decision was to use the technology to help us drive much more safely. We have implemented telematics through 6 states in over 2,000 plus vehicles, and we were fully implemented in April of this year. A little bit about the vision of what led us to this. Overall, telematics was part of a much broader vision to get to world-class customer service. We believe a minimum requirement for world-class customer service is to know where all of our vehicles are, to know what employees are in each vehicle, to know the employee qualifications of each employee in the vehicle, so that we dispatch the best people to the best locations, for the right locations for each job to meet all of our customer needs. Really, we had a twofold purpose. We wanted our employees to drive more safely, and we wanted GPS location on all of our vehicles. And we did this all for $10 a month more than we were paying for our GPS service previously. A little bit of coaching in the scoring system. There is a self-coaching mechanism or voice inside the vehicle to make sure all employees exhibit the driving behaviors that we want. For example, if you're speeding, it will say you are speeding, and it'll give you 10 seconds to reduce your speed under the speed limit, or it triggers an event. And so we have real-time training while driving, correcting those driving behaviors that are risky. We've actually created a scoring system based on those events I just mentioned, and this is based on a 10-hour period of time. If you have less than 20 events, you're considered green. It's a very sensitive system. The 20 to 50 events is yellow, and if you're over 50 events, you're considered in the red. We really do emphasize the positive reinforcement by recognizing the safe drivers on a monthly basis. So all the drivers in the green, we recognize those people. And then coaching continues on those that are in the red or yellow range until we get them into the green areas. I'll also share with you, we have a camera system, which is a different type of telematic systems that we use. We've actually embedded that into our vision also. If someone's continuously in the red, or if they've had an accident in the last 3 years, they have a camera system in their vehicle that shows what's going on inside the cab and outside the cab. So when you trigger an event, it will show what was going on inside the cab for 8 seconds prior to the event, and then as the driver sees everything, you'll see what was happening 4 seconds after the event. So you got a real good picture of what was going on before any event was triggered. As with any system, our telematics, we had some gaps to fill, because when you look at it from a safety perspective, the telematics system trains the employee to drive more safely, particularly during the more risky activity of driving the public roads. but our historical average for those is approximately 33% of our accidents, with 67% of our accidents being backing or hitting fixed objects. So around backing, we actually do track how many times an employee backs, and then we also have put in just recently how many times they go from park to reverse, because our direction when it comes to backing is we want them to pull through instead of backing, but when you have to back, we want to make sure they hot back instead of going from a parked position to a reverse position because it's much safer. So we prefer they hot back. So we're actually tracking those. And then the other 33% was hitting fixed objects, but there's been a great breakthrough, and it's not yet installed, but they're looking at what we call a halo system, or a sensor system around the vehicle that will go off when the vehicle gets close to a fixed object, and that would attack our other 33%. So we're really after the public driving, the backing, and the hitting fixed objects to have a complete system from a telematics perspective. And there's more work to be done, especially on the backing and the hitting fixed objects. At NiSource, we're looking at leading indicators as a better gauge of our behaviors than lagging indicators such as injuries or vehicle collisions. Telematics really helps us in this area, allow us to set up leading indicators around acceleration, speeding, braking, and quartering. I'll turn it over to Ben to give us more information around the leading indicators.
Thank you, Don. The typical lagging indicators of safety performance based on OSHA rates are failure-focused measures that have been proven to be ineffective at driving continuous improvement for best results. Leading indicators are more focused gauge on safety and health activities by providing early warning signs of potential failure and thus enabling an organization to identify and correct deficiencies before they mature into accidents and injuries. The Campbell Institution for the National Safety Council has defined leading indicators as a proactive, preventative, and predictive measure that monitors and provides current information about the effective performance, activities, and processes of an ESH management system that derived identification and elimination or controls of risks in the workplace that can cause incidents and accidents. Effective leading metrics are also actionable, achievable, meaningful, transparent, easy to communicate, valid, useful, and timely. NiSource has started tracking leading indicators in addition to the typical lagging indicators we are also familiar with. Including these metrics within our company-wide scorecard allows our senior leadership to understand the current health of our safety management systems. As Don mentioned, we are not where we want to be yet. Therefore, sometimes you have to crawl before you can walk. The leading indicators we use today are stepping stones to get the more impactful indicators that truly measure the behavior we want from our teams. Some of the leading indicators we track are safety team meetings held. This indicator tracks how many safety team meetings are held each quarter. We believe these employee-led teams allow the field the chance to make a difference with an organized structure. We have local safety teams that report out to state safety teams. And every year we try to have a company-wide summit to collaborate across all of our 7 states. Another indicator is a worksite safety checklist. This indicator tracks how many worksite safety checklists are completed each quarter. We encourage our leaders to get out and visit their crews. While visiting their crews, these leaders conduct a worksite safety checklist on each crew to provide feedback on not only what needs improvement, but what they are excelling at as well. This data is captured at a NiSource level, and tracking and trending provides us information for use for future training objectives. Speaking of training, training is another indicator we use. This indicator tracks the training that has been completed on time. NiSource feels that ignoring training requirements and pushing off training courses has a direct link to the safety culture and focus on safety. Tracking this indicator shows that leadership encourages completing training on time. And another is vehicle DOT inspections and preventative maintenance. We track in NiSource the amount of DOT inspections and preventative maintenance that is completed on time. Our vehicles must be in good working order to conduct our jobs effectively. Maintaining proper maintenance on our vehicles has a direct link to the safety culture overall within NiSource. As Don mentioned earlier, we will be moving towards our new telematics system next year to start tracking and trending around acceleration, speeding, braking, and cornering. I will now turn it over to Don to give even more information on behavioral safety.
Thank you, Ben. Behavior safety About half our company has had it and half the company has not. And I will say this, our indicators, lagging indicators around injuries, show that the areas that have had it are doing about twice as well as the areas that haven't. So this is a big deal for us. So overall, safety is very hard because it goes against human nature's tendencies. As humans, we look for ways to do things that take less time, take less effort, or helps us be more comfortable. Safety is a leading indicator for an area, an organization, or a company. When you're doing well in safety, you'll usually find that they're doing well in all other areas also. So why do people speed? Why do people take shortcuts? Why do people not always wear their personal protective equipment or PPE? It's because it takes less time, it takes less effort, or it makes them more comfortable. So what behavior-based safety does, it gives the employees the tools to help them understand why people make the choices they do and help them work safer by identifying risk, then eliminating the risk wherever possible, and then minimizing the risk where the elimination of the risk is not possible. In this particular slide, there's a great example. You're speeding down the road, and let's say you are going over the speed limit. You see a policeman in the median. So the antecedent is the policeman in the median. That's going to drive your behavior that you're probably going to press on the brake to slow down to get under speed. And then the consequences would be if you did it fast enough. If you did it fast enough, then there's no consequences and you go on to your destination. If you did not do it quickly enough, you'll get ticketed. So that's an example of the antecedents, behavior, and the consequences. The other thing that we talk about here is when you put yourself at risk, we say you roll the dice. And as you roll the dice, there's really 6 things that may happen. Nothing can happen. You could have a near miss, first aid, a recordable injury, a lost time injury or restricted work injury, or a fatality. So what we're trying to achieve here at NiSource is to drive the right behaviors, which will ultimately lead to the desired results, create a just culture, which will lead to all employees reporting all incidences, including near misses, create a learning culture, which we learn from those incidents and then communicate those learnings so no one else gets hurt, and instill that safety is a value never to be compromised, and that our employees are our most important resource, and the protection of those employees is of utmost importance, and that really no one should ever get hurt or injured. I'll turn it over to Ben to give us more information around modern safety and technical training techniques.
Thank you, Don. So NiSource has started to transform our training on how adults learn. This prioritizes hands-on activities, scenarios, and simulations in real-world environments to accelerate the speed to competence while enhancing employee safety. It teaches end-to-end process knowledge and skills, from assessing a job order to performing a pre-job briefing to hazard evaluation all the way through the documentation and closeout. This increases productivity immediately following training by improving understanding of not only what they're doing, but why the work should be performed as we recommend it. It sequences content in a manner designed to systematically develop skills over time, from simple to complex, from frequent feedback assessments. This will provide trainee confidence in difficult content areas by providing an opportunity for safe practice and skill development. It integrates training on safety requirements, technical knowledge, and software skills needed to perform work, which will begin developing the safe work habits immediately. It requires trainees to use available performance support tools to complete classroom activities, which develop the habit of always using the most to-date references of performing work. And it provides a learner-centric environment in which trainees must make an effort to ask questions, validate assumptions, and both locate and appropriately use standards during scenarios and discussions in a safety culture that promotes continuous improvement. And with this, we're really integrating all of our safety aspects that we train within our operations training at the same time. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Frank Perry of CPG. Frank?
Yeah, thanks, guys. Hey, you know, numbers and stats are typically lagging indicators and they're kind of boring. However, we're excited to share some of our improvement over the last few years and some of the reasons for our success at a high level. Now, in a moment, Morgan is going to share a very tangible and technical approach, but I'm going to share some of the softer, less tangible factors that we believe have contributed to our success. The good news is that nearly all of these cost zero or minimal dollars. So when we talk about return on investment for safety, these are a pretty easy sell to leadership. As you first notice the slide, you'll notice a steady declining rate in our OSHA, DART, and preventable vehicle collision data. And note that we do not have vehicle accidents. We have collisions or crashes. An accident implies that it was unavoidable, and every incident that we have thus far has been avoidable had we had a total focus on the task at hand. Now, for your safety team, this is the kind of trend that everyone loves to see. It's sustainable, and it shows that it's not just a flash in the pan from a good year, and it's steady improvement. Now, our 215, to be honest, we're showing a slight uptick in a couple areas, but it's nothing that makes us believe our program needs major tweaking or an overhaul. And our OSHA events have dropped, as you can see here, from over 30 in 2011 to 7 last year. Now, this includes all of the entries. This is bee stings, hearing shifts, and everything. And our DART events went from 9 to 1, and vehicle collisions went from 23 to 14. While any event is more than we want, we're pleased with this progress and the direction with the stats. And I also need to share that while we keep all the stats, like everyone, they're not our biggest part of our communication to the employees around their success. We still maintain that it's all about people, and trying to keep them safe is what we do, and it's not about the numbers. So how are we managing this change for our overall incidents? The first is inclusion and diversity. You know, we've really embraced our multicultural workforce, and not only that, but the varied age group and the background of all of our employees. Every employee brings to the organization a different and important view towards safety. Their past experiences and work knowledge, as well as their lack of historical work knowledge for our new employees, offers a unique look at our safety practices and policies. By really listening to all the views, we've broadened our approach on everything from training to definition and terms for our equipment. We have better pre-planning and preparation for work, and that we take more time up front to explore opportunities for an incident to occur. And then we make sure everyone's aware of the hazards, and we work to mitigate those hazards before the work starts, and that's the key. And we do this for nearly every task we perform. We also have a total commitment. From our CEO to our newest hourly employee, and from our newest hourly employee to the CEO, the expectation around safety is the same. No task is so important that it can't be completed safely. We just won't perform an unsafe act, and we won't let our fellow employees complete the task. Every employee has stop work authority for every project. Now, I know that most organizations have implemented a stop work authority of some nature. In our case, it's no magical event or no pixie dust. It's just a fundamental sharing of concern that is practiced and executed for work that we perform daily. We also maintain the importance of safety on all fronts. We believe that encouraging and driving safety is just as important at home and in the community as it is at work. It's critical that every employee carry the same attitude towards a safe workplace, wearing their PPE, performing pre-job investigations, and watching out for each other at home as it is at work. You can't have a good safe attitude at work and then go home and be lackluster towards safety. This means we encourage PPE to be taken home and utilized as needed. You know, to further ensure family and community safety, we have activities that involve family members as well as employees. We do things like we give out flashlights for trick-or-treat events, and we send home activity books around safety and what their parents do. In some of our areas, when we have new family members are adopted or born, the team sends little hard hats, you know, just to remind the parents of why they're working and why it's important to work safely. We hold collaring contests and safety posters and safety calendars that our children, grandchildren, and family members contribute to the organization, where they're published for everyone to see and share. We also reach out to community, providing tours of our facilities, explaining what we do, advising the public of what to watch out for and be aware of around gas facilities. And we support and encourage 811 Call Before You Dig programs, as well as a host of other activities. We encourage and request that each of us are our brothers and sisters' keeper. We're always striving to be in that interdependent safety culture. And clearly, when we take a personal commitment to maintain and keep a safe work environment, as well as support our fellow employees to do the same, the opportunity for success is greater. This has been one of our single most successful endeavors in get employee buy-in and commitment. Nobody wants to get hurt, and nobody wants to watch somebody else get hurt. You know, it's not rocket science. It's just simply taking care of each other. We've had to clear some hurdles, and we still have them daily around how we communicate those concerns with our fellow peers, but the outcome is worth the occasional hurt feeling or someone being a little upset. We've also implemented system-wide safety steering committees, and these teams are truly empowered and led by hourly employees. And most importantly, they're held accountable for their actions. They aren't meetings they just go to have meetings, and they address real concerns and issues confronted by employees. These teams are comprised of not just people who had an incident or being penalized, but they're made up of aggressive, knowledgeable people who want to change the culture and make the work environment better. The meetings aren't a place to catch up on your sleep and get a free lunch like some safety meetings are. The members canvass all the work groups and employees to find out the concerns they have. You know, over the last couple of years, CPG has been in the top decile of safety performance for the American Gas Association, and that's where we're compared to like-kind and size organizations for their overall safety performance. And while we're really proud of that to receive that award, the bottom line is this. If we have one DART injury in the course of a year, that's one person's life that was altered, and that's not acceptable. Our vision, now not always our milestones or goals, but our vision will always be zero incidents. In the next slide, I'm going to show you a little more tangible and ultimately a low-cost way to improve safety. We know that PPE is the last line of defense against injury, but if employees aren't wearing it, then odds are stacked against them even greater. By ensuring that safety is in style, there's a much better chance it will be worn. You know, we try to offer the latest in glasses, gloves, and clothing, and not the old school, heavy, out-of-date, ugly PPE. And this is particularly important for our new millennial employees. And the more seasoned employees, they seem to enjoy it just as well. We've also looked hard at our training programs to make sure they're up to date as possible. I'm going to turn it over to Morgan now, who's going to really give you that technical, tangible way that we've implemented a safety program that ultimately leads to the betterment for all of our employees.
Thank you, Frank. Today I'm going to discuss the Intelligent Pipeline solution and how it allows us to reduce threats to our systems. So what exactly is the Intelligent Pipeline solution and what are the benefits? At a high level, Intelligent Pipeline is a big data integration and risk modeling software. Intelligent Pipeline is first and foremost an active risk tool that calculates risk and displays relevant data to evaluate interactions and drivers to the risk score. It does this through a cloud-hosted software and web interface that provides a geospatial representation of the Columbia gas pipelines. It integrates CPG source data and external data and displays this geospatially along the pipelines and in tables. It incorporates data analytics and risk algorithms, enabling data-driven decision-making. Some of the benefits of IPS include a comprehensive model of threats and factors on the pipeline. It allows us to have the ability to analyze drivers and mitigation of threats, enables data-driven decision-making, and allows us to see changes on the pipeline in near real time. So how does IPS work? It works by integrating multiple source systems of data, which includes CPG internal data as well as external data. This gets pulled into a GE cloud-hosted server and gets geospatially displayed on a map along with the active risk score. IPS is essentially an app for pipelines that allows an individual to quickly be able to make prioritized decisions by overlaying data on the fly. This tool will allow users to see changes on the pipeline. These changes, such as a pressure change, will impact the risk score. This tool also allows users to see the various threats around this pipeline, such as a precipitation or geohazard. IPS is a software that supplies us reliability for our buried assets, assessing the mean time between failures, monitoring real-time information, and we are in the process of incorporating predictive analytics around this information. IPS supports management of change, which allows us to implement any new safety procedures if required. So what are the data sets and the functionality of Intelligent Pipeline? The internal data sources include GIS data, which brings all of the pipeline attribute information, such as pipe diameter, pipe material. By knowing where our valves are on a line in a time of need, we would quickly know which valves to open or close to isolate a leak. By knowing where inline inspection tools have been run on our system, allows us to be proactive to mitigate the threats found from the tool before an incident would occur. One-call dig tickets. By knowing where there are a high number of one-call tickets, we can be sure to increase the frequency of sending out reminders to call 811 before you dig, which would reduce the number of third-party incidents on our line. Third-party damage is one of the largest threats to our system, employees, and communities. CPG risk tool values will also be incorporated in addition to active risk. The current risk tool will be used to plan long-term projects as well as validating the new active risk tool to make sure it is assessing for the appropriate threats on our system. SCADA, which stands for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition. This includes the actual pressures, volumes, temperatures, and British thermal units of our pipelines. This allows us to maintain safe operating conditions of the pipeline. Being able to use remote equipment cuts down on the number of people going out in the field, which reduces drive time of employees, which will lower risk of injury from driving. This also allows us to be prepared with the proper equipment and personnel to perform tasks. Our work management system, which shows leaks, grades, and repairs. This system allows us to prioritize repairs as well as being efficient at repairs, which in turn allows us to perform more. Some of the external data sources that will be included in the Intelligent Pipeline solution include NOAA, geohazards, and USGS information. This information can be used to alert maintenance and operations personnel of the working conditions when troubleshooting or performing repairs, proper equipment, properly trained personnel, pre-planning, and material needs. Combining these data sources gives us a new way of looking at risk associated with our pipelines. An example, such as a pipeline with topside dents in conjunction with a large amount of one-call tickets can be assessed at a higher risk area. IPS allows us to make active risk assessments rather than annual. This active risk lets us know daily what internal and external factors are on our pipeline and what precautions can be taken to ensure the safety of our workers as well as the community. If a threat affects the pipeline, it potentially affects every person within the vicinity. The more we know about the pipeline and threats of that line, the better prepared we are, leading to less incidents. So what are the benefits of Intelligent Pipeline Solution? First and foremost, IPS improves the safety of our pipeline. It is a comprehensive model of threats and factors on the pipeline. By knowing the threats and factors on a pipeline that has had an issue, we can be proactive and search for other lines with similar attributes to prevent an event from happening. It also allows us to be better prepared for events when they do happen. IPS offers the ability to analyze drivers and mitigation of threats. It gives us the ability to be proactive in our decision making, thereby reducing the risk on our system and employee exposure. Enables data-driven decision making. The use of historical data rather than personal opinion to base business decisions ensures you are correcting the highest priority safety operations and issues first. Near real-time changes are shown on the pipeline. This allows us to quickly react to any changes outside of normal operating conditions. Facilitates translation of risk discussions between working groups. This tool allows everyone in the company to have accessibility to this data, which presents the possibilities of various opinions from different working groups. Finally, it promotes data integration, completeness, and the prioritization of data cleansing efforts. It allows us to see if any attribute or risk number is out of the ordinary and can be followed up on to reduce a threat to an area. So this next slide is showing a screenshot of the Intelligent Pipeline solution. Once you log into IPS, you are taken to the map home screen. Some of the features of the map include the ability to add layers onto the map, such as a compressor station, valve, tap, drip, or leak. Being able to apply filters to the map to see specific attributes, such as pipe material, pipe age, class, MAOP. We have search capabilities on various locations, such as on pipeline names, measurement stations, and GPS coordinates. And we have the ability to overlay risk scores onto the pipelines. Active risk scores allow the user to view where on the map there are pipelines that have a critical, high, medium, or low risk based on predetermined thresholds. So as you can see in the screenshot, it is showing you that you have turned on the drips and leaks layer onto the system. The data is clustered to indicate the density of the feature at a macro level. As you zoom in, the clustering goes away and the feature will become visible on an individual basis. This screenshot also shows the active risk badges. By applying these badges, you can visually identify the active risk level of a particular pipeline and associated linear assets. This data can be used to prioritize projects and maintenance activities based on current data. This data assures you are concentrating mitigation efforts in the highest risk areas. This slide shows a drill down from the previous slide. When you have more organized data, you have a better ability to analyze and apply third-party insights, giving the opportunity to make a high-quality, data-driven decision. So this screenshot is showing you zoomed into a pipeline at a dynamic segment level where there are multiple layers turned on. The anomalies layer is shown by the purple circles. By clicking on this, you can get information about that anomaly, such as the length, width, surface, orientation. The HCA layers is also turned on. This is the blue highlight. This shows that this section of line is in a high consequence area. By clicking on this, a similar pop-up box to that of anomalies would display, giving information about that specific high consequence area. The potential impact radius layer is shown in orange. Displaying this shows the PIR of that specific pipeline. Additional attribute information for each of the dynamic segments can also be given by clicking on the pipeline itself. IPS allows users to prioritize information in tables and then to visually see where this information is on our system. Having the ability to do this gives users a closer look at where the largest threats on our system are and allows them to be proactive in mitigating these threats. Being able to arrange data in tables and displaying this information on a map, as shown in this slide, allows us to be more efficient when prioritizing projects. And with that, I will open it up to questions.
Okay, thanks everyone. That was a wonderful presentation. And now we are in the question and answer segment of today's event. So once again, please submit any questions you have via the chat function of the platform to corporate and community partnerships. Any questions that we don't get to today will be passed on to the sponsors so they can contact you with an answer. So the first question we have is for Columbia Pipeline Group. How have you actively applied IPS to a safety-related event?
Recently, on a line in our system, there was an anomaly identified on our pipeline that had metal loss. By utilizing Intelligent Pipeline Solution, we were able to see the threats and consequences that metal loss anomaly was causing on our system, and we were able to make an educated decision to remediate that anomaly right away instead of waiting until our next planned assessment.
Okay, thank you. And now one for NiSource. How has the driving performance improved with telematics?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's really got three parts to it. We do a blind part when they first get their vehicle, and people average about 22 events during that blind period. Then we actually, once it kicks in, we measured them at 15, and over the last 4 months, we went from, and these are green, or the events in each of the vehicles in a 10-hour period of time, we went from 22 in the blind to the 15, and now we're at 7. So from a driving behavior perspective, we're seeing great results with that.
Okay, now another question. Is your behavior-based safety program a voluntary in the areas where you have implemented it, or mandatory?
Yeah, in the areas that we have implemented it, it is mandatory, I guess. Everyone goes through it, so from that perspective, About half of our employees have had it and half of our have not. We're in the midst of just rolling it out to the other half right now. So it is, they all attend. So I never thought of it as mandatory or not, but I would assume the answer would be mandatory, yes.
Okay, another one. How do you validate that your leading indicators are predictive and are making a difference in your lagging indicators? How can you assess the cause and effect of the relationship?
Yeah, and some of that's trial and error, and we've actually talked to a lot of other companies that do leading indicators, and it's varying success. And it's one of those things where you think you have the right behaviors or metrics around it, but you got to see it go to the bottom line. Let me explain this. We use telematics as an example. Just mentioned that we went from 22 events to 15 events to 7 events. Now, I mentioned it got rolled out on April 30th. We haven't seen a comparable result or a drop in preventable vehicle collisions. We've seen a drop, but we haven't seen the drop that we would expect from the leading indicators and those what they're indicating. But you have to remember that we're only 33% of all the vehicle collisions. We're still working on backing and the hitting fits objects. So I would say it's different for everyone. There's no magic formula. You have to know your business, you know your areas, and pick the ones that are the most important that will impact your lagging indicators.
And we are still new with our leading indicators, and I kind of talked about it earlier when I mentioned crawling before we're walking. We're introducing leading indicators to our senior leadership. For instance, the safety minutes held. So to capture that, you have to have a safety meeting and you have to conduct minutes, but really we don't know how powerful those meetings are yet. So we are looking into ways to actively measure what comes out of those meetings. And from that, we'll be able to see a direct link into those instead of just having a 30-minute meeting and nothing really comes from it. So we are working our ways towards that. With leading indicators, they are forever changing, in my opinion. You're not going to have one year over year over year. You're going to change them depending on where your culture is and what you're going after.
Okay, here's one for the Columbia Pipeline Group. Towards the end of the presentation, there was a slide with the risk number of 0.66. How do you actually use that risk assessment number, and what does that mean?
Yes, this number lets us know that there is a small risk associated with that pipeline and allows us to focus our attention on lines with larger risk scores. It allows us to be forward-thinking, preventative, efficient in our overall assessment, and allows us to avoid customers and employees getting in harm's way.
In addition to that, those are also color-coded to some degree, so at a very quick observation, you can assess the particular risk that you have around a pipeline, and that just helps us a great deal in knowing on everything from the equipment we're going to need, people we're going to need, the skill set we're going to need, the staffing level you're going to need to handle whatever that problem may be.
Okay, and now here's one for NiSource. Can you use behavior-based safety concepts outside of the field of safety?
And the answer is yes, and I have seen different companies do that. At NiSource right now, we are just using it for safety. And from that perspective, you could use it for finance, for processes, continuous improvement, and the processes and criteria that you come up through with behavior-based safety apply to all of them. So you could do that, and I have seen companies. I was at Duke Energy for 27.5 years. They did do some of that with the behavior-based safety outside of safety. But primary use that I've seen has been for safety, and it does get very good results.
Okay, now this question goes out to both organizations. Who is responsible for driving safety in each organization?
I can take that from the CPG perspective, and that really boils down to every individual in the organization. You know, as I mentioned earlier, it truly is from our CEO down and from our first and newest employee up. Everyone is accountable for it, and everyone takes ownership of that. And as we get better and better at reaching that interdependent stage where we learn not only to take care of ourselves, but take care of each other, it becomes more of a family event, if you will, and it's practiced. And Now, clearly, my team and the safety group, looks at, what are we going to use for near misses, and what are our leading indicators going to be, and what new programs do we want to initiate, and what type of driver training we're going to have. And, not a lot of options on those, although everything that we do is employee-based, and we actually have our safety steering teams help us in the selection of all those programs that we do. But safety is owned by everybody.
Yeah, from a NiSource perspective, I will echo almost everything that Frank said. It applies here. The only thing I would add, and I think he was saying this, is that for how to improve driving, the driving programs, we partner with the organizations to make sure we roll out things. And we try to get, across the 7 states, we try to have 80% be the same, and then 20% as different states or different areas need that, we'll tweak it to meet their needs so that they drive more safely. But the employee is ultimately accountable for their own behaviors and their driving.
Yeah, we have, to kind of piggyback on that, we'll have a standardized program that goes across all 16 states, but in certain geographic areas, you may have an overly aggressive, for want of a better term, group that really tries to do some new things and takes on their own individual training and stuff, and we certainly encourage that. We have that set minimum standard that we expect everyone to do, and like NiSource, we monitor that. We monitor for completion of that, the timeliness of that, but we certainly don't discourage others from coming up with a great idea, and then that rolls back to our safety steering committees, and then we try to share those good ideas across the whole organization as well. We learn from each other.
Okay, great. All right, another question. Can you further describe the HALO system to prevent collisions, and also with backing issues? What, if anything, do you do with spotters or 360-degree walk-around?
Yeah, that's a great question. The sensor, and I was with the CEO of one of the telematics company 3 weeks ago, and it's just being worked on right now. But anytime the vehicle, it's kind of like the backing sensor, where you get closer, it beeps more and more until you hit a solid beep. Same kind of concept, but it'll be all the way around the vehicle. So that would help us, because some of our slow speed hitting fixed objects is the side of the vehicle or the corner of the vehicle. So that would help tremendously from our standpoint to eliminate that.
The other one, we do 360s. Every employee is required to do a 360 around their vehicle as their last order of business. We do provide reminders, whether it's cone or a magnet, to remind those employees to do those. Again, to Don's comment earlier in the presentation, if we were where we wanted to be, we wouldn't need reminders, but what we do provide those at this time. We do require spotters when there's more than one person in the vehicle. We do provide spotter training. We provide a driver maneuver training that really has the employees go in the vehicles they'll be driving and learn how to back up effectively, how to use their mirrors properly, how to adjust their mirrors properly, and actually we have practice spotting within that technique as well. We talk about blind spot awareness. One of the activities we do with that is we'll put somebody in the driver's seat of a car, take 6 cones, spread them around the vehicle until all you see is the top of the cone, and then have the driver get out and see how big those blind spots truly are, to really give them an understanding of what they can't see when they're in the cab of the vehicle.
Yeah, we do some very similar trainings along the same line in regards to looking for blind spots, maneuverability courses and stuff. And some of our compressor stations where we have a really close proximity to a lot of pipes, things sticking up, we have called no back zones. And essentially those are just marked with a piece of yellow, cheap chain that's hung between cones, and it doesn't prevent drivers from backing into those areas because they need to, but what it does, it forces you have to get out, move the chain, and then do a walk of that perimeter of the area that you're going to be backing through, identify those hazards. We encourage folks to literally touch those hazards with their hands as they're walking back through this area that they're going to be backing, and this includes the spotter as well as the driver, and that's helped as well. I will say we're pretty consistent in about 60% of our vehicle incidents, and we've had 7 preventables this year. have been backing into fixed objects, and that tends to be the Achilles heel still, but we're working on them.
Okay, great. We only have a few more minutes left, but we have time for one more question, and I think this question could be applicable to both organizations. How are you dealing with the different generations for training?
I can talk on the NiSource side. So I talked a little bit about the adult training that we're doing. And really with that, you talk about the Nintendo generation, how we want that instant feedback. We really want our training to be very interactive. Really trying to get away from any lecture-based training where you have an instructor up in the front of the room for hours at a time just lecturing. We want to get people up, get people interactive, moving around. And to touch on other areas of that, we understand that adults learn differently. Some learn more by the visual aspect, seeing something. Some prefer to be more auditorial, they want to hear it. And other things, they have to touch it. They have to then to mess with it. So we understand that, and we develop our training to hit all three of those categories.
Yeah, and that's exactly the same for us. In fact, we have a fairly newly formed training department. For years, we kept a full-scale training department and kind of cut back, but now that's coming back with a lot of rigor, and we look at all different types of hands-on, different computer-based. We look at more, phone apps and things for training and ways to correspond that way. Pretty much like NiSource, like I said, we try to make different options available and try to make it bridge that generation gap we talked about. We really try to embrace that in everything that we do, and training is just another aspect of where we look at all the different options and how we learn differently, respond differently, and certainly grew up with different training mechanisms that affect us. So we try to cover them all.
Okay, well, if there are no more questions, then this is going to conclude the question and answer session of today's webinar, and I really hope everyone enjoyed the presentation. For our audience, a short survey regarding today's webinar is going to be sent to you shortly, and I'd appreciate it if you would, fill it out. It's really not going to take you that long, but your feedback is really important to us, and it'll help us create more quality events for the Young Professionals Division. So thank you once again to Don and Ben from NiSource and Frank and Morgan from Columbia Pipeline Group. And everybody have a great afternoon. Thanks for coming. Thanks for showing. Appreciate it.